The most dangerous prison is the one you cannot see, the one built silently within the corridors of your own mind. It has no iron bars, no guards, no physical chains, yet it confines billions of people every single day. You can walk freely through the world and still remain trapped. You can achieve success, wealth, and status, and still feel an invisible wall separating you from peace. This prison is built from your fears, your doubts, your unhealed wounds, and your need to control what cannot be controlled. It forms slowly, without your awareness, each time you silence your truth, each time you believe the voice that says, "You are not enough." At first, the prison feels safe. The walls are made of familiar thoughts, familiar routines, familiar illusions. They protect you from risk, from rejection, from pain. But over time, you begin to notice how small your world has become. You stop exploring new paths because fear whispers that failure is fatal. You stop expressing your true feelings because the mind insists it's better to be accepted than authentic. You start living according to what is expected, not what is real. And with every compromise of your soul, another brick is laid in the walls around you. The tragedy is that the mind that builds the prison also becomes its warden. It guards the illusion of control, convincing you that it's safer to remain inside than to step into the unknown. It tells you that you are too old, too late, too unprepared to change. It feeds on repetition, on comfort, on predictability. It calls it stability, but what it really means is stagnation. You obey these thoughts because they sound familiar, and familiarity feels like truth. But what you do not see is that these thoughts are not commands. They are suggestions that you have unconsciously accepted as law. Freedom begins the moment you question the authority of your own mind. When you stop believing every thought that arises, the prison begins to crack. You start to see how fear has disguised itself as logic. You notice how your doubts have been masquerading as humility. You recognize how often you've mistaken self-sabotage for self-protection. And in that moment of awareness, even if the walls remain, a small light enters the cell. You realize that the mind is not the enemy, it's simply a servant that forgot its place. It was meant to help you navigate the world, not dictate how you experience it. But breaking free is not as simple as deciding to be free. The mind will fight for its walls. It will tempt you with comfort, seduce you with certainty, and threaten you with imagined disasters if you dare to escape. It will whisper that you are safer where you are, and that's where the battle begins. Not against the world, but against the inner conditioning that has made captivity feel like safety. The courage to face your mind, to challenge its lies, is the first true act of rebellion. When you begin to see thoughts as passing clouds instead of absolute truths, the walls start to dissolve. You start to realize that nothing outside you was ever holding you back. It was always the narrative inside. Every limit you've accepted was built by belief. Every fear you've surrendered to was born from an unexamined story. Freedom does not mean controlling the mind. It means seeing through it. It means standing in your awareness, untouched by the noise it creates. The invisible prison loses its power when you stop identifying with it. You are not the prisoner, nor the warden. You are the awareness that sees both. The mind may build walls, but consciousness was never confined. The moment you remember that truth, the door that was never locked swings open, and you walk out, not into a new place, but into the vastness of yourself, free at last from the prison that never truly existed. Fear is the architect of the mind's prison. It lays the foundation, brick by brick, through hesitation, doubt, and the desperate need for control. It whispers in subtle tones, "Don't take that risk, don't speak your truth, don't let them see who you really are." It tells you that safety lies in staying small, predictable, and unchanging. But what fear truly protects is not your peace, but your limitation. It keeps you confined within the borders of what feels certain, never realizing that certainty itself can be a cage. Fear does not always roar. Often, it disguises itself as reason. It convinces you that you are being careful, when in truth, you are being captive. It makes you believe that it's guiding you towards stability, when in fact it is stealing your vitality. You begin to mistake avoidance for wisdom, control for strength, and overthinking for awareness. But fear has a single goal: to stop movement, because movement threatens the walls it has built. Every step you take toward growth shakes the foundation of the prison that fear maintains. The need to control is fear's most deceptive disguise. You try to control people, outcomes, and even your own emotions, because uncertainty feels unbearable. You tell yourself that if you can just manage everything perfectly, you will finally feel safe. Yet control never brings peace, it brings exhaustion. Life cannot be controlled, it can only be met moment by moment. The tighter you grip, the smaller your world becomes. You start living in reaction to imagined threats rather than engaging with what truly is. The truth is, fear's walls are built from illusions of danger, judgment, and failure. The mind creates stories about what could go wrong and then believes them as fact. It projects shadows of disaster onto the future, causing you to retreat into the comfort of the known. But comfort without growth becomes decay. The same walls that keep out pain also keep out transformation. When you avoid discomfort, you avoid life itself. Freedom begins not by destroying fear, but by understanding it. Fear is not evil, it is ancient, born from your instinct to survive. But what once kept you alive now keeps you from living. You cannot silence fear by force, you dissolve it through awareness. When you turn your gaze toward fear instead of away from it, something extraordinary happens. It loses its authority. You see that fear is nothing more than energy, and energy transforms when it is met with consciousness. The walls of fear crumble when you stop feeding them with belief. Every time you choose honesty over comfort, courage over certainty, you weaken fear's foundation. You begin to see that courage is not the absence of fear, it is the refusal to obey it. You realize that the only control worth having is self-control, the mastery of your own attention, your own reaction, your own energy. When you learn to observe fear without judgment, you begin to stand beyond it, and from that place, the mind's prison starts to collapse. There will always be moments when fear returns. It is part of the human experience. But once you have seen its illusion, it can no longer rule you. You learn to walk with fear without letting it lead. You learn to feel it and still act, to doubt and still move forward, to tremble and still speak truth. That is the moment the walls lose their power. The mind built them to keep you safe, but you were never meant to live behind them. Real safety comes not from control, but from awareness. And when you understand that, fear no longer commands, you do. The mind is clever in how it disguises captivity. It tells you that the walls around you are there to protect you, that safety lies in the familiar, that the comfort of what you know is better than the uncertainty of what you don't. And so you stay, stuck in patterns that drain you, surrounded by habits that no longer serve you, repeating the same emotions that once kept you secure but now keep you small. The mind's most dangerous illusion is that captivity equals safety. But what it really offers is quiet decay, the slow suffocation of the soul disguised as peace. There is a strange seduction in the predictable. It gives you the illusion of control. You wake, you work, you repeat. You avoid what makes you uncomfortable, believing that comfort means contentment. But what you call comfort is often avoidance. Avoidance of risk, of truth, of change. The familiar becomes a soft, warm cage. It feels safe because it is known, but it kills growth because it is stagnant. You cannot evolve in the same space that was built to protect your fear. The mind tells you that stepping beyond your limits is dangerous, yet the real danger is never stepping at all. This illusion of safety is what keeps most people asleep. They live in mental prisons made of routines, expectations, and roles that no longer reflect who they are. They tell themselves that they are at peace, but beneath that surface lies a quiet restlessness, a whisper from the soul that something is missing. It's not life that has become dull, it's the spirit that has been confined. The human soul was never meant to live in repetition. It was meant to expand, to discover, to break, to heal, to awaken. Yet the mind resists this because change threatens the illusion of control. The irony is that true safety comes only when you stop clinging to it. When you stop trying to protect yourself from life, you begin to truly live. The mind tells you that the unknown is chaos, but the unknown is actually freedom. It is in the unknown where creativity, wisdom, and meaning exist. Every great transformation requires stepping into uncertainty. But the prisoner of the mind waits for guarantees, for perfect timing, for absolute assurance that the step ahead will not hurt. That step never comes. Growth demands risk, and risk demands courage. You cannot be both safe and free. One requires comfort, the other demands truth. Comfort numbs, truth awakens. The moment you choose to listen to the call of your own unease, to face the dull ache that says there's more to life than this, you begin to dissolve the illusion. It is not the walls that imprison you, but your attachment to them. When you finally stop mistaking security for peace, the cracks in the walls begin to appear. Through those cracks, light enters, the light of awareness, possibility, and new life. Freedom does not come by destroying the known, but by walking through it consciously. You do not have to abandon everything. You simply have to stop worshipping the familiar. The moment you see that your safety was only a story, the story loses power. You realize that the comfort you sought outside was only meant to be found within. When you start trusting life, when you allow yourself to feel uncertainty without retreating, the illusion fades. The mind may still whisper its warnings, but you no longer listen as a prisoner. You listen as a master. The illusion of safety collapses, and in its place comes something far greater than comfort. Peace that is born not from control, but from surrender. That is when the spirit begins to breathe again. That is when life begins to move freely through you, no longer confined, no longer afraid, alive at last. The parts of yourself that you hide, deny, or suppress are not your enemies. They are the keys to your freedom. Every fear, every insecurity, every shadow that you try to bury deeper within your mind becomes another bar in the invisible prison. The irony of the human condition is that what we most run from is exactly what holds the power to liberate us. The shadow is not darkness meant to destroy you. It is the unacknowledged truth that has been waiting for you to turn toward it. Until you face it, it owns you. Once you embrace it, it frees you. The mind fears its own depth. It prefers the light of the known because the unknown within feels dangerous. But that darkness is not evil. It is the part of you that has been exiled, misunderstood, and silenced. Your anger, your jealousy, your shame, your hidden desires, all of these were pushed away not because they were unworthy, but because at some point you were told they were unacceptable. To survive, you buried them, and in doing so you built your own chains. What you repress does not disappear, it moves into the unconscious, shaping your thoughts, your choices, your emotions from the shadows. The mind builds walls to protect you from this confrontation, but those same walls also keep you from ever feeling whole. The shadow is not the enemy, it is your teacher. It shows you where you are still fragmented, where you are still afraid to see yourself completely. Every judgment you have toward others, every reaction that feels too intense, every pain you cannot explain, they all point to something inside you, asking to be seen. But the ego resists this with all its strength. It insists that you are good, right, pure, in control. It cannot bear to admit that darkness and light coexist within you. Yet true transformation only begins when you accept that contradiction. You are not one or the other, you are both. And denying half of your nature will never lead to freedom, it only deepens the split. To integrate the shadow is to look into the mirror without turning away. It is to see the parts of yourself you have avoided and say, yes, you belong too. It does not mean acting on every impulse or glorifying pain. It means bringing awareness to the parts you once exiled so they no longer need to rule you from beneath the surface. The moment you stop judging your own darkness, it begins to lose power. You start to understand that what you called weakness was actually sensitivity, that what you called selfishness was an unmet need, that what you called anger was the voice of a boundary long ignored. Facing the shadow requires courage because it dismantles illusion. It strips away every false identity built on the need to appear good, strong, or perfect. But when you finally confront it, a profound peace emerges. You begin to realize that freedom was never about escaping the darkness, but about integrating it. The parts of yourself that you feared most become sources of strength. You learn to move through life with compassion instead of denial, understanding instead of avoidance. When the shadow is embraced, the mind's prison begins to crumble. The walls were built from the rejection of self, and self-acceptance is the force that dissolves them. You no longer need to control everything because you no longer fear what lies within. You no longer run from pain because you have learned it carries wisdom. You stop hiding behind perfection and allow yourself to be real, whole, flawed, and alive. The shadow was never meant to be your enemy. It was the part of you waiting for your love. When you finally turn toward it, not with judgment but with presence, the illusion of separation fades. What once imprisoned you becomes your path to freedom. And in that moment of integration, you discover that light and darkness were never fighting. They were always reaching for each other, trying to make you whole. The greatest illusion the mind ever creates is the illusion of identity. It whispers to you that you are your name, your roles, your possessions, your appearance, your story. It convinces you that you are the image others see, the achievements you collect, the reputation you protect. And so, unknowingly, you begin to live not as yourself, but as the mask you have built. Every thought, every action becomes a defense of that image. You begin to shape your behavior around what keeps the identity intact, rather than what keeps your soul alive. But the truth is, the self you are protecting does not exist. It is a construct, and the more you cling to it, the tighter the chains around your mind become. The mind fears losing its identity because identity gives it control. It creates boundaries of who I am and who I am not, giving a sense of stability in a world that is constantly changing. But what feels like stability is actually confinement. The ego, built on comparison and validation, constantly seeks to prove its worth, to assert its superiority, to confirm its existence. It thrives on separateness. The moment you begin to question that separateness, the walls begin to shake. The ego will panic because its survival depends on your belief that you are only what you appear to be. Transformation begins the moment you dare to look beyond the mask. You start to realize that the person you present to the world is not the totality of who you are, it is only a fragment. Beneath that image lies something vast, fluid, and uncontainable. You were not born to defend an identity. You were born to experience life fully, to evolve beyond every label. But the mind cannot grasp this. It fears the loss of control that comes when boundaries dissolve. It resists surrender because surrender feels like death. Yet what dies in that process is not you. It is the illusion of who you thought you were. The ego builds its prison out of attachment. It says, I am my success, and becomes enslaved by ambition. It says, I am my pain, and becomes addicted to suffering. It says, "I am my beliefs," and becomes blind to truth. Every identity, no matter how noble or empowering it appears, limits what you can become. Freedom begins when you start observing the self you have constructed without confusing it for your essence. You realize that you can play roles without being consumed by them, that you can hold opinions without being imprisoned by them. You begin to act not out of fear of loss, but from the quiet knowing that nothing real can ever be lost. The dismantling of identity is not the destruction of the self, it is its liberation. When the walls of "I am this" or "I am that" fall away, what remains is pure awareness, untouched, undefined and whole. You no longer need to prove or defend anything. You can be both strong and vulnerable, confident and uncertain, light and shadow all at once. You stop living through concepts and start experiencing reality directly. The fear of judgment fades because you no longer depend on approval to exist. When you let go of the image, life begins to breathe through you again. You discover that freedom was never about finding a stronger identity. It was about realizing that you were never confined to one. You are not the story, you are the awareness reading it. You are not the waves of emotion, you are the ocean beneath them. The mind will still try to rebuild its walls, but once you have glimpsed what lies beyond them, you can never again mistake the cage for home. True transformation happens when the mask falls and you stand naked before your own truth. There, in the stillness beyond identity, you meet yourself, not the self the world taught you to be, but the self that has always been watching, waiting and whispering beneath the noise. And in that moment, the illusion of who you were fades, and what remains is freedom, silent, infinite and real. Awareness is the quiet key that unlocks every prison the mind has built. It does not fight the walls or destroy them. It simply shines light upon them until they dissolve. Most people live half awake, trapped in automatic patterns of thought, reacting to life rather than experiencing it. They mistake their thoughts for truth, their emotions for identity, their past for destiny. But awareness is the moment you wake up inside your own mind and realize, "I am not my thoughts, I am the one who sees them." That single realization begins the collapse of the mental cage. When you begin to observe the mind instead of obey it, its control weakens. You start to notice the endless noise, the judgments, fears, expectations that once dictated your every move. The mind's power lies in your unconscious participation. It speaks, and you listen without question. But the instant awareness enters, you create space. You can watch a fearful thought without becoming fear, observe anger without acting from it, feel pain without drowning in it. That space between awareness and reaction is where freedom lives. The mind is loud, but awareness is silent. And in that silence, truth becomes visible. You begin to see how much of your suffering was created not by life, but by the stories your mind told about life. You realize how often you argued with reality, wishing things were other than they are. Awareness does not change what happens, but it changes how you meet it. You stop resisting, and through that acceptance, energy that was once trapped in conflict becomes available for creation, growth, and peace. Awareness is not a practice of escape, it is a return. It brings you back to the present moment, to what is real. The mind loves to wander into the past, replaying old wounds, or into the future, rehearsing fear. Awareness brings you home, reminding you that life is not happening in memory or imagination. It is happening now. And in that now, nothing is missing. You begin to see the beauty hidden in simplicity, the stillness behind movement, the peace beneath thought. As awareness deepens, you no longer need to control everything. You no longer cling to every emotion or chase every idea. You let thoughts pass like clouds in a vast sky. You begin to live consciously instead of habitually. The same situations that once trapped you emotionally lose their grip, because you now see them for what they are, temporary waves on the surface of consciousness. You stop asking life to be different and start engaging with it as it is. That acceptance is not weakness, it is power. It is the power that comes from no longer being ruled by illusion. Awareness turns pain into understanding. When you see clearly, even suffering becomes a teacher. You begin to recognize the patterns that caused your pain and, instead of resenting them, you use them as doorways to greater depth. You realize that everything the mind used to label as failure or loss was simply an invitation to wake up. The mind imprisons, awareness liberates. The mind divides, awareness unites. The mind fears the unknown, awareness embraces it. Freedom through awareness does not mean the mind disappears. It means you stop identifying with it. The mind can still speak, but it no longer commands. You listen to it as you would to the sound of wind, sometimes soft, sometimes violent, but never personal. Awareness gives you choice. You are no longer a puppet pulled by thought. You are the witness, calm and centered, who decides how to move. When awareness becomes your way of living, the world transforms without changing at all. You begin to move through life lightly, untouched by the turbulence of your own mind. You realize that freedom was never something to find, it was something to remember. And once remembered, it cannot be forgotten. Because the walls of the mind can only hold you when you forget that you are the sky beyond them. Stepping into the unknown is the final and most terrifying act of freedom. The mind clings to what it knows because it equates familiarity with safety. It builds walls of certainty and calls them protection. Yet the truth is, nothing alive was ever meant to stay confined. Growth requires movement, and movement requires risk. The unknown is not your enemy, it is the field where transformation happens. Every great awakening begins the moment you take a step into what you cannot control, trusting that life will catch you, even when your mind cannot. The mind fears uncertainty because it cannot predict it. It demands plans, outcomes, and guarantees. It wants to know how everything will unfold before it allows you to move. But life does not work that way. Life is not a formula, it is a mystery unfolding through experience. To demand certainty is to demand death, because nothing truly alive is predictable. When you step into the unknown, you begin to live in harmony with the truth of existence, that control is an illusion and surrender is the only real power. The unknown is where you meet your true self, the part of you that exists beyond fear and beyond expectation. Within the familiar, you can only repeat who you have been, but in the unknown, you are reborn. It strips away your false securities, your constructed identities, and your mental definitions of what is possible. At first, it feels like falling, but what is actually happening is expansion. The boundaries of the mind dissolve, and consciousness begins to stretch beyond the limits of comfort. That space, though uncertain, is sacred. It is where life begins to create through you, instead of you trying to control it. Stepping into the unknown also means embracing vulnerability. It means being willing to fail, to feel, to be seen without the masks. It is not a leap of recklessness, but a surrender to truth. You start to understand that courage is not the absence of fear, it is movement despite it. The unknown humbles the ego and awakens the soul. You stop demanding guarantees because you realize that security is not found in circumstances, it is found in trust. The more you let go, the more life reveals its intelligence. What once felt like chaos begins to feel like guidance. The unknown also reveals the illusion of control that the mind has been clinging to. You see how much energy was wasted trying to plan what can never be planned. How many dreams were delayed because you waited for the perfect moment that never came. Freedom requires letting go of the need to understand everything before living it. It requires faith, not blind belief, but an inner knowing that you are part of something vast and intelligent. You stop trying to force life into order and start participating in its flow. When you step into the unknown, fear may still speak, but it no longer defines your direction. You walk with it, not behind it. You move forward not because you are certain, but because you are alive, and that aliveness becomes its own compass. The path will not always be clear, but clarity is born through walking, not waiting. The unknown does not destroy you, it reveals you. Eventually you look back and realize that everything you were afraid to lose was never real security, it was comfort. And comfort, though warm, never led to freedom. The unknown, on the other hand, demands your entire being. It calls for surrender, for faith, for courage. And when you give yourself to it, you find that it was never empty. It was always full of possibility, waiting for you to enter. The most dangerous prison is the one built by the mind, but the key has always been the same, to step beyond it. The unknown is not darkness, it is the light you have not yet learned to see. When you walk into it with open eyes and a willing heart, the walls of illusion fall away, and life, vast and unbound, finally greets you as your own reflection. Freedom does not come from mastering the mind, it comes from seeing through it. The mind builds its walls from fear, memory, and control, convincing you that safety lies in what is known. But the known is only repetition, it is life on a loop. The moment you dare to step beyond those walls, something profound awakens. You begin to see that the prison was never real. It existed only in your belief that you were trapped. True liberation is not about escaping life, it is about meeting it fully, without resistance or illusion. It is the courage to face what arises inside you, without running, without pretending, without lying to yourself. The mind will always whisper reasons to stay confined, but the soul whispers louder, calling you toward expansion, truth, and wholeness. Every moment of awareness, every act of honesty, every step into the unknown weakens the prison bars. Slowly you realize there was never a guard, only fear disguised as protection. And when that realization settles, silence returns. In that silence you are no longer bound by thoughts or stories. You become vast, still, and free. The prison fades, and all that remains is the open sky of your own being.